Post, creator of College of the Dead, the Zombie Apocalypse series. And tonight, I'm really excited to have Narwhal on my channel so we can talk to him, find out about Earthbound, find out about his absolutely exciting, interesting new project. And I really appreciate you making the time, Narwhal. I know you have a lot of things going on, most of them mysterious and interesting. So thanks again so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Excellent, man. Excellent. Um, you know what? I'm always really interested to see how people first get into comics. You also have an interesting aspect of you, and I've seen a couple of your YouTube videos. Guys, I believe, okay, the link to Narwhal's YouTube channel that you guys should definitely subscribe to is in, I don't have it in the description, but I do have a link in the description to Narwhal's website, and it's right on there that you can subscribe to his YouTube channel. He's got a very interesting YouTube channel on just film and different ideas and just very cool stuff. So make sure you subscribe. Oh, and just quickly, hello to Nella. Thank you so much for joining us early, and thank you, Peter. Great to see you, Tony. Hey, Tony, Tony Sizzle. Very cool, very cool. Great to have you, man. Great to have you. And Shinto, great to see you. You're one of the most dedicated COMICSGATE people I've ever seen. You are everywhere at all times, and I'm glad you're here too. So, Narwhal, if I can ask though, just like, how did you first start getting involved in making comics?
Yeah, I made my first comic in high school. I want to briefly, let me just mention on the YouTube channel. I know with your boy Zach, I subscribed to him. You know, it was like way kind of early in the phase, but he was at I think 2,000 subscribers, and he was raising up like 500 a day, and he quickly got up there. And like I remember
Wow.
that moment where it felt. But the thing I remember too is that I clicked on one video, liked it, and then I clicked on his channel, and there was like 50 videos, and I binged all of them because they're all kind of similar thematically, and so they one led to the other, led to the other. So I'm kind of trying to do that with my YouTube channel a little bit, where it's all just kind of like writing theory, film theory type stuff. So that's what my early in my channel days, it was all over the place, and I think you don't get it. You theoretically wouldn't pull in as many subscribers if you're not a little more focused. So that's what I'm trying to do a little bit, I guess.
Well, you have a very interesting YouTube channel, and since we're on it, let's discuss it. And guys, I'm going to put the link to the channel in the chat right now as we're speaking. Plaster Harris, okay, Narwhal Books. So your background, what do people get out of following your YouTube channel and listening to Narwhal on YouTube?
Yeah, it's like I kind of just call it like it's like storytelling, you know, commentary types like ideas, you know. Like the idea I'm gonna try and do a video tomorrow, and it's just gonna be called like how to develop your style. And the only idea is gonna be what's the idea? It's priorities over time. So I'm gonna talk about that. So yeah, I get like these little ideas and I'll try and make a video. And I found, you know, I was making videos. Again, it's kind of been a couple years, and if I look at old videos, I remember it used to be hard to rant for 10 minutes. I'd feel exhausted at the end of it, and I have to pump myself up beforehand. And, you know, I might say too much or be thinking there, but as you do it more and more, you get better at it. And now a 20-minute rant is easier for me, and I'll have little visual aids set up to keep me going. And I'm still trying to improve in all different sorts of little ways, but it's funny. It happens naturally. As long as you're kind of just doing it, then you're going to improve and over time build some subscribers, you know. But yeah, so
it's kind of true of everything.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying no, not at all, brother. It's kind of true of everything. You could see the YouTube channel now, right? On screen? Or I don't know if you're watching. Okay. Yeah, I just kind of, so it's Plaster Harris is the name of the channel. It's one word. A lot of interest on writing. He's got stuff on world building. And I've been involved in comics for a couple decades now, and I've developed a lot of ideas into comics, working with talent. And there are a lot of very good, like, I like these like little poignant, important, cool ideas encapsulated in a video that you can kind of just turn your brain off and watch and learn something and be like, ah, good point. Ah, that's a good point. Oh, that's kind of cool. There's a lot of cool stuff like that on here from Narwhal, so definitely worth subscribing to. And my only point on what you were saying was that I found that for myself too. Like when I had first thought an opportunity to be on a YouTube show, I was not comfortable being on that show. I was really nervous. And then, after you do it a few more times, you're like, you get into your own groove, you know what you're capable of doing. And it just comes second nature. You become who you are in that environment. Maybe that's a good way to say it.
Yeah, you get like
I
more
think it's kind of a
comfortable
great way to say it.
comfortable in your shoes or whatever.
You're you. You're your narwhal or you're your Adam, like in that environment, and you just do your thing, and people like you or they don't. Less of a
Yeah, and that's kind
performance
of a
and more
big
of just like doing your own thing.
yeah, and that's kind of a big part of selling your comic. We've learned with this new model is kind of like it's half the comic, half the personality. So you want to get out there and be yourself, unapologetically kind of.
Yeah, it's a performance, but it's you. So you get a bit comfortable with being you, and you just do your thing. A lot of people. Someone just commented here. They haven't seen you around yet without your mask,
Yeah,
and that's sort of your new thing. Is you're like no mask,
I'm
the real man.
rebranding. I'm rebranding without the mask. The mask is still a thing that I'll do once in a while, but it's just going to be for goofy, fun streams. And if I'm being a little more serious, then I won't wear it. I think that's again. I was trying to think about bringing in more subscribers. I was like, if the first thing they see is me in a mask, I wonder what impressions that give. If I'm like, yeah.
Maybe that becomes a different identity, like the masked narwhal, and you only do certain types of content that way.
Yeah, like I used to
can niche it off.
before I got banned. I did like late night streams, sometimes with beer, and I'd play guitar, just goof around. Like I'd probably wear a mask for that still.
Mm-hmm. Well, you also have the Soy Zorro brand. Soy Zorro is
yeah, that shirt. It's like the idea makes me laugh, so I put it up. But the way that site works is, I think you have to sell 10 shirts for them to ship all 10 out. So if you just sell one or two, then it won't ship out. So, and then I think it like the sales like start to zero again after a week or something like that. So I haven't broken that 10 sales yet, but I haven't really pushed it. I'm going to push it a lot eventually, like next spring or something.
And then again, though, if that's not who you are by then maybe you don't do that.
Yeah, or like pick a different shirt.
Tony is curious, and Mr. Captain, always good to see you, brother. Tony asked a good question before you got banned, and Tony might be a troublemaker, but he seems like he's a lot of fun. He asks good questions. So, Tony, that's a reasonable question. How did you get banned?
So I was live streaming, and I was watching like what I perceived to be like public domain movies on live streams late at night with like 12 people or something. We're just hanging out, drink beer sometimes, and that worked good for a couple movies. But then for a couple, it was killing the live stream. And these are movies that are like free on YouTube, but apparently they're still copyrighted somewhere, So that's what did me. And I kind of learned that lesson the hard way, is that it was Street Fighter 2 anime I was watching, and the stream went down, and then I got the copy strike, and then I deleted the stream because I was worried about it. But you're not supposed to do, like, I think you can appeal it if you don't delete the video. So if that happens to anyone, take note, don't delete the video.
Don't delete it. You can put it to private so no one can see it, so there are no new infractions, but don't delete it so it could be reviewed.
Yeah, yep.
Type of deal.
So then I got banned.
I'll get in trouble for something.
Yeah, and I got banned for 90 days for that. I'm still trying to figure some of that out. I think if you mute audio is definitely do that, because they get you with the music more than anything. A lot of people, when they show video, they don't show audio at all. Like even movie review sites on YouTube, I've noticed they'll show tons of footage, and I'm like, how do they get away with it? It's that they don't show audio. It's like muted. They're just talking over it, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, maybe it's just better to just be like steer clear,
Yeah.
Who needs it? Unless it's really gonna make your day.
Because you only get 3 strikes, and eventually, if your channel gets big enough, then you get like people targeting you directly, trying to get your channel taken down. That's like what happens to Ethan and Zach.
Yeah. So it's better to not take chances if you can avoid it. So how did you get into making comics?
Yes.
Is this the first comics thing? Earthbound, is that the first comics project you worked on?
No. Yeah. So I can do quickly the timeline. So I made one comic in high school, and it's classic terrible, like terrible. It's hard to look back on, but it kind of got the ball rolling. And then I went to animation school for a couple years, ended up dropping out and going to regular school because it was too expensive, really. But I still did some animation stuff there, but at regular school. But it was Evergreen State College, which is kind of infamous too. But it was an okay education, but it was kind of a useless degree. And if it was today, YouTube is like a way better education. But back then, I don't know if that was a thing or not. But so got out of there. Then kind of just like I worked part-time Craigslist, checking the Craigslist on LA Craigslist every morning, and I do storyboarding jobs and stuff. And
Wow.
so then I'm like 25, 26, 27. Like right around 27, I was like full-time ish. Like I could pay rent and buy food by doing that, but I was so poor. So it wasn't really sustainable. But it was still kind of something that I was doing. I did another like 30-page comics. So at this point, I'd done 2 30-page comics right around there. So I hadn't done too many, but I was writing a bunch of screenplays. And even those still weren't good, but I was getting better at them. And then right around 30, or maybe a little earlier, like 28 or 29, I got my first like kind of real comic gig, kind of lucky from being in the right place at the right time. But a journalist who had a book deal that with a medic in Afghanistan, they were going to do his memoir as a graphic novel, and they had an artist lined up who dropped out because he said he maybe couldn't handle the workload. They needed someone who could draw and color 150 pages in a year, which is like quite a bit, And
Yeah.
I told him I could do it, even though I was sort of untested at this point. And that book, over the course of the year, that was my gauntlet, and they paid me like reasonable, better at that point than I was making on Craigslist. And so I was kind of like pro for a year, maybe a year and a half. I was like kind of a pro, but then that ended, and that was just kind of the end. I pitched that company my next book, which is Foreign Agent. I pitched them Foreign Agent, and they said it's cool, but we don't want to do it. So then that's kind of the point where I jumped into COMICSGATE, and I had watched COMICSGATE for like 6 months or so prior to that without jumping in really, because I was still kind of sort of in this mainstream thing. And when I did jump in, they cut ties with me. That writer, he voiced his concerns, and then we don't talk anymore. So it's kind of a bummer in a little bit, but also good riddance, sort of. I'm really glad I jumped into made that decision to jump into COMICSGATE. So then I had been working on Earthbound part-time kind of while I was doing that book. So Earthbound, and then Foreign Agent, kind of right around when I was 30, I started taking some of my old scripts that I thought were actually good. I'd written a few years prior, some of the later scripts. I had 2 of them, and I was like, these actually could be good comics. And so I started making them into comics, and that's kind of what's been my products for COMICSGATE.
Narwhal, did you that book was published? That book the 150-page book with the Afghanistan medic?
Yeah, I might have a copy here. Let me see. Yeah.
Just curious, because I didn't know you had pre-published work.
Yeah.
Oh wow, Machete Squad.
Yeah, it's Machete Squad, so it's kind of thick, and I wasn't following it. It was like a real print run. I'm not sure how many. I think its first print run was 10,000 copies, and I'm not sure if they sold out or not to get another print run. I haven't got any checks. Eventually I'll get a little something for royalties, but I don't know what it is. And yeah, but this one was like it definitely like
Interesting.
I ended up redrawing like 20 to 30 pages out of 150, so quite a bit, where I was really kind of figuring out my style. I almost didn't necessarily have it when I started the book, but then when I finished it, that had kind of been the gauntlet of fire to get me going. And the style necessarily too has been like, it's kind of pretty simple in a lot of ways, where I can draw it fast-ish, where I can do maybe a full page and color it in 8 hours, so I can do one a day.
It takes a lot of confidence to work the way you work, like your style. It really does take a lot of confidence. People don't understand necessarily, like, I'm not an artist, and I have hired a lot of artists, and I know enough to get myself in trouble. Let's put it that way. But I just kind of like know what I like. I've seen Ethan Van Sciver comment about your artwork. The motion, the positioning of figures, and just how beautiful the design is, and how natural the characters look. And I get that comes from your animation. I mean, a lot of thought goes into where the figures are going to be and what perspectives you're going to use.
Yeah, it's definitely like when I mentioned like the video I want to make, it's like my priorities and I can tell you like what they are and I don't really know why. It's kind of just like what I've always thought looked good, but it's I really like a real solid perspective where you can feel almost like the panel is a window. You're looking through a window into the world. So it's like pretty like a nice wide lens with borderline perfect perspective. And then I like the characters to be kind of animated. And one thing I've noticed too is with comic art, you need a way somehow. There's all different ways you can do it, but you need a way to separate the characters from the background. So with inking, a lot of time you might have like thinner lines in the background and thicker lines for the characters, or you might have a white outline around the characters, something like that. And then for coloring, you can use color holds. That's kind of what I did here. Is I use color holds on every single background line, and then the characters are a black line, and it makes them pop out and it makes it feel a little bit like that animation style where animation you have a painted background and then you got cells on top of that of the different, it's like two different art styles, but for some reason we've been conditioned to think it looks really good, and I think it looks good too, but it definitely like it conjures up animation in your mind when you see it. And that's something I kind of want to incept because I would like to see one of my comics adapted to animation eventually one day.
I would be shocked if it wasn't. I think there's going to be a lot of adaptations of your work in the future. What just color holds just to define that for anybody who might not know.
So that's where, for me, I'll draw the lines gray instead of black so I can select them all in Photoshop just with a click. And I'm not selecting the black lines at that point. And then you basically make the instead of being gray, you'll make them like a shade of the background so they sink into the background. You can see on the screen right now,
wow.
There's color holds on the characters in the background there, so they sink into it.
So the characters that you want to pop out, those you'll have, like on this figure.
Yeah, and I actually used a color hold on her dress because it's white, so that's a little color theory thing too. Like it's hard to get it's hard to get black lines on like a white dress. So like I don't know, like
you can, but it doesn't look right.
Yeah, it would look a little weird.
Yeah, I mean just the energy and the interaction between the two figures is fantastic. I mean, is that a cover image or that's just you pulled that from a panel? Or
that was pulled from a panel, and I kind of just used that for the main promo because it's my favorite. It's kind of one of my favorite panels that turned out really good. But also, it's funny. It's sort of like people look at it and they're like, "Oh, is this like a like 70s exploitation kind of story?" And I'm like, not really. I don't know. It's
no. She's trying to not get. Looks like she's trying to not get stabbed, and someone's threatening her.
Yeah. And so it's almost like a spoiler why this panel's in the book.
Well,
yeah.
Buy the book. Look at this panel. You can still buy Earthbound. We're going to go over the tiers later. But just when talking to Narwhal and talking about Narwhal's background in comics, there's a lot you have to talk about. There's just uniqueness with Narwhal. He's a heck of an interesting guy, and his work is interesting. I mean, look at these color effects.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful stuff, man.
I kind of, when I jumped into COMICSGATE, that was one of the things that kind of got a response from other people, kind of like giving me compliments essentially, which then gives me like positive reinforcement to want to do it more. But it was my coloring. People thought my coloring was good. And as that's grown, I've taken on a couple gigs within COMICSGATE coloring other artists' work. And
here's one I saw you do for Scott, his Door Kickers book. You did this cover of Door Kickers, this extra cover, and the color is fantastic. The design is fantastic. The energy between the two characters, the story that's being told. I mean, is this all of your design? Or he basically told you, how did this come about? Now, but not the whole history with Scott. I know Scott reached out to you, whatnot, and just you're cool.
Yeah.
And you wanted to work, but how did you guys compose this?
He gave me the concept. There's actually, I think there's a video on my channel where I designed this live while we were talking about it. And yeah, it's like, kind of how digital drawing works. I like it. I'm more used to it than traditional, where I use Control Z, which is undo a lot. So I'll draw huge sweeping gesture strokes. And if I don't like it, I'll just do Control Z. So I don't really erase. I'll just draw the stroke till I like it. And sometimes I'll draw a whole form and then delete it, and then I kind of feel warmed up after that. So I think I had drawn and deleted it 3 or 4 times, and you start to find this pose where they're kind of playing off each other, good angles and everything, kind of in perspective, that I like, where you're looking down at his feet, but you're looking up at his head, so you're kind of feel close to it. And so that it kind of just went from there.
That perspectives do a lot for engagement with the audience, right? That's what really brings us into the experience of whatever's going on the page.
Yeah, I feel like it sucks you in. And there's two different kinds of perspective too. So like in Europe, they really love, like I just call it like wide angle perspective. That's kind of how our eyes see, like this is kind of like that. Like, but there's also something called long angle perspective, and that's almost like Egyptian hieroglyphs where all the characters are pretty even on the page and they're drawn amazingly. That's kind of a more American style. That's kind of how like Jim Lee draws and stuff. And they both are perfect perspective, but it's kind of weird. It's just the angle of the lens basically is what changes how you draw.
So this is a freelance assignment that you took on, and you were saying, and I interrupted you because I was so excited about this one piece. It's just such a cool piece. But you also what other kind of books are you coloring in COMICSGATE?
I'm working with Art Tibbert right now on his new one called Chrono Mechanics. And then I'm working with Matt Cosson, he I think wins. He does Drawn and Quartered every week, and he wins a bunch of those. So he's a great COMICSGATE artist.
Yeah, his book Agenda was going to come out, and then unfortunately things got ruined when James Hudnall passed away, which is very sad.
Yeah,
super talented writer.
Yeah, that was sad, and that hit Matt hard. He took a few months off. He was bummed. So I'm obviously super bummed about that. Really good friends with that guy. But so his follow-up project is going to be with me. We're doing a book called Modded. It should come out next spring, and I co-wrote that one too. But it's from a concept by Tungsten, who's this Singapore dude who he's super cool, and he loves. He got into it through his kids, but he loves the Nerf modding community. He's kind of involved in that. He has a YouTube channel with like 1.5K subscribers, all based on Nerf modding. And so there's one page in Earthbound, kind of just a throwaway page to start the scene. It's like the moment before the scene begins, but it's a bunch of kids playing a Nerf war with each other before the main character walks into the scene, kind of. And so he saw that page. He reached out to me and he's like, "Hey, we should make a Nerf comic. And I'll like, I have some budget that we can work with or whatever."
Oh, great.
And I was like, okay. So we kind of started that process. And it's funny to meet him through that way, this like worldwide community and everything. COMICSGATE definitely, like, it's so cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. We know people all over the world, and different people are great at different things. And as publishers, I'm a publisher too. I'm publishing College of the Dead, which will be out very soon, just a couple of weeks. We're shipping on time in October, and we all kind of help each other, and different people have different experience, and it's a great environment. But yeah, there's an incredible amount. The talent I see is amazing, and what I'm also seeing is I'm seeing people's like first published projects. Yours is no exception to the rule. It's just an amazing looking project. When I published my first comic book that got distributed to comic book stores, it was a book called G.I. Jackrabbits. It was an animal parody. That was a hot thing in the 1980s. And the cover was great. The first 2 pages were great, but the rest of the interiors were really not good. And it was because we couldn't manage the artist. I was a teenager, so it's like I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But the first projects I see come from people through COMICSGATE. They're really like very, very solid, impressive projects.
Yeah, what part of that is, I bet, is it's because a lot of people, like myself kind of included, where we were trying to break into the mainstream industry for years and they're kind of just ignoring us. And like I couldn't get, there's like the story where you can get like build up 100 rejection letters, and then you have this romantic story about your ascension to breaking into the industry. And I'm like, I can't even get a rejection letter. They just won't even respond. So I'm like, this is crazy. That's why I really loved that COMICSGATE came around.
Yeah, me too, Captain. Make sure you're subscribed to NARWHAL's YouTube channel. Plaster Harris is the name of the YouTube channel. I also pasted in the description, not in the description, but in the chat. But I'll paste it in the description later. But yeah, NARWHAL is a very interesting guy, and it's cool to get info and feedback from him.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. Part of that, like that aspect of the origin story that's kind of interesting is, so I think I was like when I was 24 or so, I moved to Arizona. No, I moved to Texas. I moved to Austin, Texas, and Arizona was later. I lived in Arizona for a bit, and then I checked Craigslist Austin for jobs, and there was this guy who was trying to prepare like pre-production for a movie, like a comic book-esque movie. He needed a bunch of comic book art, and so I responded to him, and we talked, and we were kind of becoming friends, and we met and had cheeseburgers together. And he was a good writer, and he worked at a video store, and that his name's Louis Dorge. Like, not that it matters too much, but he ended up kind of becoming like my mentor. Like, he would give me free movies to rent, and he gave me like 100 movies to watch. And they aren't like, some of them are art films, some of them are, but they're all sort of ones you haven't heard of too much. Like, I don't know, like some, like a lot of people have maybe, but there's like this guy named Suzuki, as all I know his last name, that he did like Branded to Kill, is like this amazing black and white Japanese movie. And then there's like this guy named Bresson, who did some cool French movies, whatever. So I was like, kind of through him became like a film buff, although I don't even remember all the names, but just like totally sucking in all these movies and that are weird and cool. And we talked a lot about film theory and stuff, and hang out and drink beers that way. Usually I'd drink and he wouldn't, and later on he would drink. And then he got a divorce, and his dad died in the same year, so it had a terrible year. So I was kind of his buddy through that, and like a good little fun relationship. But I owe a lot of like the development of all the kind of theories or whatever to like his tutelage, basically.
Very interesting. You got a lot of movies that are really well done, that are iconic, can really leave you with a lot of information too, because it's just things that are so well and carefully crafted. They speak to you a lot as a creator, right? I mean, you get a sense of, like, take a movie like The Godfather. There have been so many variations on The Godfather started that whole genre, right? Didn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, family and business, and the whole Sopranos obviously came from Godfather, but I mean, so many projects come downstream from those iconic things. So to watch like 30 or 40 or 50 movies like that, each that are just these brilliant touchstones that are a singular creator's vision like that, you do get to see a lot. It'd be interesting to try to have you assemble a list of the ones that you can remember from that.
I know. Yeah, I kind of want to, and maybe I would try and share it if I could, because I could do that. I just have to think about it for like an hour and just
at least maybe at least a few of them, or even think of one and note maybe what you got out of it. That might be interesting video content to make it part of a series. It's interesting for people to think about. I like it. I like when creators are empowered too. I like Robert McKee a lot. I think he rewrote this book Story. He gives screenwriting lectures for people that don't know, but he's got a lot of videos on YouTube as well, just giving presentations. And there's a lot, if you're passionate about being a writer, or if you're passionate about being an artist, but you want to understand story, there's a lot you can get out of watching these videos, and studying this content. You were and someone who I always mention when it comes up to story is someone else in the COMICSGATE community, Professor Geek. I love his YouTube channel. Take a look at it. Just Professor Geek, look him up. Look at it, particularly his takes on archetypes, which are just classic character personality traits that exist throughout Western civilization that you'll recognize immediately. It's almost like giving anatomy to story. When you understand, you can't draw if you don't understand anatomy. You can do your own version of anatomy, but you need to have the basics, right?
Yeah, there's stuff like if you know these things, then you start to see them, or then you can use them. Like, that's funny. It even works like in real life. Like, I had to last summer, or like last spring maybe, I had to mail something kind of for the first time in a while, because I don't usually have to mail stuff. And so I was like, I need to go. There's no post office nearby. And my roommate's like, there's little mail drops where you can just drop it in the mail. They're on the street. And I was like, really? No, there aren't. Those are like from the 1950s. He's like, no, they're everywhere. And I walk outside and I was like, oh, they're everywhere. Because I didn't even know that they were a thing. So I didn't see them,
You didn't know that we had mailboxes still, like drop mailboxes.
Yeah, drop mailboxes. Because I lived in apartments, so I didn't have like a mailbox.
Ah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, there are a lot of worlds out there. We live in our world and we live in a shared world, but there are a lot of in between worlds. Everyone's kind of in their own world, and they cross over with a few other people, but it's relatively infinite. There's a hell of a lot of stuff going on that none of us see, and probably a lot of it we don't want to see, but some of it's interesting.
Yeah, and it can definitely help like as a writer or like sometimes like I think actors give good commentary on their characters a lot that's super insightful and that's kind of a good way to learn a little bit about writing from that and it's kind of like yeah like their point of view and what they see and what they don't see, you know.
I'd
Yeah.
like to follow a process of creating a concept, going from high concept to then attaching an appropriate archetype to it, and then coming up with a character arc that you would then superimpose in a story, just like really build it from the ground up.
Yeah,
Uh,
like in a sense formulaically, but you know by the end it's going to be a
it
kind of
becomes
special.
organic.
Yeah, it'll be kind of special product no matter what. Sometimes there's like a weird way things work sometimes too where if there's a project that you're just doing for fun and you don't give a shit about it, sometimes that ends up being the thing that you like most or people respond to the most or I don't know why that happens, but it seems to happen.
Well, you're just comfortable with it and you're kind of being led by. See, it's like when you were talking before about your drawing, which I kind of work that same way as too. I don't like to limit myself to try to pre-plan when I'm going to do something that it's going to be perfect. I just kind of like to do something and then assume that I'm going to get it right by iteration. So,
Oh yeah.
I do it wrong all the time, but it's almost like when you throw that crumpled up piece of paper and you're like barely even try, and you just like hit that basket all the way across the room, which is rare. But when it happens, it's very cool. It's like, hey, magic, that's cool.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
just kind of creating in a freewheeling way when there's like really nothing at stake, and whatever comes out great comes out great. Now, Earthbound is something that you've been working on. Was this based on one of your screenplays?
Yeah, so there's a little full story to this too. It's
Yeah,
back
take your
back
time.
okay, back to me and Louis George hanging out when I was 24, 25. We were made the decision to co-write a screenplay together, and we wanted to write a horror movie, and we he had like some characters to bring to it, and then he's like, there could be any bad guy really. It doesn't really matter. Like, who would you pick for a bad guy? And I was like, let's call him Spaceman. He's just from outer space shooting teenagers, and so we started writing it and it's like this ridiculous comedy. It's a little meta. It has some movie within a movie type stuff to it. It's way different than what Earthbound ended up being, but it was this weird script and it was kind of fun. And we were sending it around to the few people we knew in the industry and it'd get like, people kind of liked it, but nothing crazy. But there was a couple producers who at least feigned interest and they're like, write another. So that was one, like one guy's like write another draft, but make it more like Guardians of the Galaxy, basically was his note. And and Lou at the time was working on an actual movie, and so he's like, I can't do this. Do you want to just kind of take this, and this can be more your thing from now on? And I was like, sure. So even though it's like a shot in the dark, and sure enough, nothing came from it. I don't even think after I finished it, I don't even think I emailed the producer, but I did kind of keep it and I liked it, But I rewrote the whole draft and made it more like Guardians of the Galaxy. I took out like all the meta stuff, took out a lot of the horror elements, made it more of a space adventure. And then the main idea that I came up with that kind of changed the whole thing, that the whole horror story kind of hinges on, is how the guns work. So the guns are called R types, and there's two of them. There's one green and one purple, and Spaceman and Julia each have one, and they're sent to Earth. And the way the guns work is you can shoot anyone with the gun, and then that person joins your team. So you could shoot like the mayor of a town, then you kind of control the town, or you could shoot the president of the United States, then you might have influence over the United States. But
They lose their free will. I was reading that in the description earlier. I was like, and that's how you worded it. That's your wording, the free will, that they lose their free will. I never
yeah,
heard it. I never heard of that. I mean, maybe I don't get around enough, but I'd never heard of that before. I thought that was really cool.
yeah, and the story plays with how that works and all the ins and outs, because it's like the people, once you get shot, it's like their personality doesn't change that much, so it's kind of mysterious what exactly is happening. They don't like become a zombie Borg who does what you say. They sort of just are on your team from that point. It's almost like you enter an alternate universe where they were on your team from the whole time, or you're like ripping that version. But that's all, like none of that's explained, but it's kind of there to think about free will and stuff, whoever wants to dig into it more. And
Is it like, almost like with like Men in Black makes you, they have that flashy thing, and then you
yeah,
look into that, and then you have that recent amnesia, and nothing ever happened. This is sort of like a brainwashing almost.
yeah, it's sort of like, yeah, like being brainwashed where you kind of keep your personality, but then you're just kind of like you're kind of, it's what they're, you're working toward the same goal is kind of one way I would put it. If you shoot someone, then all of a sudden they kind of know. Like that's something WizKid asked Julia, that he's like, how do they know once you shoot them, how do they know what to do, to help you? And she says the first order comes with the bullet, but it doesn't really, like, that's all she says.
I like it. I like it. I think it's unique. It's very cool.
Yeah.
So Earthbound really was that evolving screenplay, and then you decided, I'm going to turn this into a comic.
Yep, that's pretty much exactly what it is. And this is 150 pages, and this is the first half of the story. It kind of ends on a Kill Bill. It's like separated kind of like that, Kill Bill volume 1 and 2. So there will be volume 2, and I released the digital version already, and it's getting good reviews and everything, but people do mention, they're like, the cliffhanger, I want to know what happens. It's almost like that's like a critique. They're like, I wish there wasn't a cliffhanger. I'm like, I get you, but I'm working hard on part 2, so we're going to get it.
I believe it. You can count on NARWHAL. The soft cover raised over 14,000, and what we're looking at here is the hardcover version, which raised just so far under 10,000. The soft cover version is still available through the tiers here, as is the hardcover version. So this is through in demand, and NARWHAL can give production updates. It looks like the digital version is no longer available, right?
Yeah, and I can do that on an individual basis. I've done that. People reach out, like, because they noticed, like, oh, it used to be, but now it's not. I'm like, if you want to PayPal me $7 or whatever, I'll email you the PDF.
It's kind of damn cheap.
Kind of informal, yeah. Or it might have been $8, whatever it was for the original.
Okay. All right. As far as doing that, you could reach out to NARWHAL. Would you just maybe put it up as a perk, or you don't want to mess with this at this point?
Yeah, I probably won't mess with that. I think, I don't even know if I can at this point. This one's closed.
Oh, to add a perk, I think you can. You can add, if you. I'm not telling you have to or anything, but just as an FYI, I do believe you can add a new perk in demand if you want to, if you choose to. And I think you also, if you might want to select this, like you could select one of these as featured if you wanted to. Do you have a set? Do you have a set? Like, because you could do the soft cover, the hard cover, and the sketchbook if you wanted to in a set, and make it more expensive. Maybe that'd be like over $100 for something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the one that got requested that I created was combining the hardcover with the sketchbook.
Oh, cool.
I think, I don't know if anyone wants to buy a soft cover and a hardcover. Usually they just buy the hardcover.
The only people that want to buy everything are the people that love NARWHAL, that are like, man, that guy is cool. How do I give him money?
Yeah. I do have a few completionist fans, which is fun. Like, it's, I would never guessed. And like, even you, I'm sure, like, you have people that'll tune in to, like, they try to catch every live stream or whatever. It's awesome to have this support.
Well, it's just fun when they, it's, we become a small part of people's lives. We're lucky to do it. We respect people. We're positive. And is the hardcover the same cover as the soft cover?
Yeah, it's the same art. It's just hardcover.
Okay. They both sound very cool. But okay. Well, in any event, we can look at the tiers. What else should we know about the story? We didn't even talk about this yet, really. So let's talk about the story of the overview.
Yeah, so it's very similar story-wise to Battle Royale, if anyone's seen that movie, or even like Dawn of the Dead, like that. Those are two of my favorite movies, and it's where the plot of the story is just kind of the strategy of the situation playing out. So the first like 20 pages are like setting everything up, and then for 130 pages, it's the strategy of everything. Kind of one prolonged. It's not necessarily all action, but it's one like pretty like snappy pace, and where two headhunters are sent to Earth to recruit five deadly warriors for the Galactic Grand Prix, which is this off story thing coming up in the future, but it's this tournament. So there's this infrastructure where you basically have mercenaries recruiting fighters against their will. So they actually have a draft for super powerful fighters, so they don't all try to get the fighter at once. So you have an exclusivity contract to get like these high tier fighters that get drafted. And then if you get drafted, it's against your will, but then you still can avoid the people trying to recruit you. So you're like, you can hide out or whatever. And so that's what these two people are sent with these guns to come get these five deadly warriors. And they're in this competition with each other because they're essentially slaves themselves. And if one gets three, if whoever gets the majority of the five gets their freedom, and the other one gets back into cryostasis until the next mission comes up.
Always good to have an incentive. So you get your freedom if you get the largest number of fighters.
Yeah. That one's like a simple one that works. Speaking of like, it's almost like archetypes or whatever. I don't have to dwell on it. I just kind of set it up and go.
Yeah. Okay. And the production status of this right now is you already sent this off to China or for printing.
Yeah, it should be printing right now ish. And like, so I'm expecting an email in the next week where it'll be shipping, and then it's another 4 weeks or so, but then it's good. And then I'll be mailing it out. So it's coming up, and I'm not sure how I'm going to do with closing it down, because this is something you might be able to relate to this, where it's with COMICSGATE, you can sell books on the art very easily, but it's hard to sell books / impossible to sell books on the writing. And I want to sell this some on the writing too, but like I released the digital, but a lot of people don't want to read the digital. They'll only read the hardcover. So, yeah, if I wait a little bit for like some feedback to come, build a little more word of mouth, a little more street cred, it might equal a few more sales. So I might try and do that.
It definitely will. I mean, my thought on this whole not Kickstarter, the whole crowdfunding model, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, whatnot. Now, Kickstarter doesn't allow people to keep an open store, at least as far as I know. Indiegogo is great in that after the campaign is funded, as long as you fund it and hit your number, they allow you to keep the in-demand store, which means that people can still buy and back your project. And you could, as far as I know as well, add additional tiers, maybe a set, whatever it might be, and continue to sell it as long as you have an availability to deliver it. In this case, I'm planning on keeping the store open for a while until I have another product, because the thing is, you do want to be able to appear on shows, talk about your next project. People become immediately curious about, hey, what about your other projects, or what else do you have available now? So as you're talking about your next thing, people are interested in the current thing, and there's no reason that you shouldn't be able to sell it. I think with major projects like Graveyard Shift, or where they're doing 6-figure big things and they have a reason to not be in demand, makes sense, because it's also part of what they made promises to fans. But this is obviously a limited edition printing. I think you said you were doing 2,000 or so of these.
Yeah, so it maxes out at that anyway. All the second campaign has caps on it because I can't sell it, all of them. Yeah, and what was I going to say? Yeah, like, so with that too, ordering the copies. Oh yeah, like that's why there's two campaigns, because I closed it kind of trying that John Malin model, and I had 1 week and I did get some sales during that week. I'm like, last chance, and sure enough, you get some sales. But then I kind of realized, like, ooh, I don't know, that was kind of a mistake, because the demand will keep building, kind of like you mentioned, like it builds naturally at like a certain rate. It's different for everyone, but if you just wait 3 months, it's almost like like 20 new people would have wanted to buy it, but they can't. And that tension builds up. And so if you launch another campaign, you'll get more sales as people who didn't get the chance the first time. Or you could just leave it in open all the time as a trickle.
It's like, you've been around a lot, but you're not like very pushy about selling your book. So, and people aren't necessarily aware, like, well, can I still get Earthbound or not? And the answer is like, yeah, you can. And then people are getting messaged constantly with other projects people are doing, and retweets for this and retweets for that, and ending tomorrow, and all kinds of things going on, all kinds of other projects. So as you have time to get onto channels and talk about what you're doing and who you are, and also, I don't know if you promote as much. We were on a stream together a little while ago too, and I was like, I'm going to bring up your new project because I haven't heard anybody mention it just yet. So it's just good. It's good for the hosts too to remember. Like we got to make sure our guests get a chance to mention the projects that they're working on, because the thing is we all want to support ComicsGate people that are working hard and it look like they have a lot to offer ComicsGate creatively, and it's important for us to do that. Because if we don't do that, they're not going to make enough money to be able to stay in the business. And get one. If we get Norwell an extra 5 or 10 grand, who knows what he's going to do for ComicsGate? It's not going to be bad. That much I can tell you for sure.
Yeah, we're all like improving too, like, so like you mentioned, everyone's kind of coming in ready and hot, but also everyone's improving, and like including me, but yeah, like everyone's improving. So I'm just like, I'll support people just almost as an investment on the excitement of where, their career's going, is a big chunk of it, as well as their personality themselves and the product they're selling at the time. Wanger's kind of like that. Like,
oh yeah, I love Wanger.
yeah. What about you? What's your next project, and what's the timeline for that?
Well, I have to get college. This is my College of the Dead project. This thing's got to ship. It's been scheduled to ship in October 2019. It's going to ship in October 2019. I have multiple sets of prototypes. I just got another version of the prototypes where I'm looking at this. I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not. I'm going to show it to you, brother.
Yeah.
I could always use extra feedback. I have a version. All right, I'll make myself. Let's see if I know how to make myself the full screen. Yeah, I think I do.
Nice.
I've got a version of the cover without the fire and a version with the fire. It was offered originally with the fire. So I was like, the graphic designer he's a great guy. He added the fire, and Kyle colored the cover, and Kyle okayed the fire. And it was kind of his creative idea, and he's a good guy and everything, but this was kind of the original concept, and it's actually what Kyle did on his own. So
Kyle Ritter.
Kyle Ritter, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I kind of like it both ways. But I think I prefer it tonight. I'm preferring it without the fire.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like based on what you're telling me. You're almost answering your own question. But I was thinking, yeah, like if the fire doesn't fit the style, like I can't quite see, but then I wouldn't use it. But if it fits, then it could work. But yeah, I think maybe we're going without it, is because especially if they both look good, then it doesn't really matter too much.
It's more iconic that way. And the other issue is College of the Dead Book 2. I'll show you the College of the Dead Book 2 art. So I don't know if you've seen this cover or not, Narwhal, but Javier, the artist who did everything else for the series, did this cover as well. And
nice.
and actually Scott's colorist Farah is doing a color take on this now. We'll see how it comes out, and she's a really talented colorist. It's just,
yeah, she's good. That's cool.
This works so well in black and white. It's almost like maybe we shouldn't even color it, but till you do it, you don't know. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a good test. With that kind of inking style, sometimes you can color it with flats. It will look really good, like without shading on the colors. But I don't know.
She actually did do flats, but I know I always say I don't like when people show flats for color, because there's kind of a misunderstanding that that's the way it's going to be, and flats is just obviously for selection of color, and it's not what it really is. But now that we brought it up, I think I have to show the flats. Yeah, you know what? You're a genius. You can tell me obviously I like your work. You can tell me what you think of this. How do I show this in a not crazy way? This was on Facebook. All right, I'm going to try and show this in a not crazy way. This is not what the final piece is going to look like. Not nearly. But this is just ideas for... What are you doing? Facebook is so weird. If you make an image bigger, it gets smaller. If you make it smaller, it gets bigger.
Oh, yeah.
All right. This is apparently it's beyond me to manipulate the image. Can you see this?
Yeah.
This is just flats.
Yeah. That's cool. But I guess between that and black and white, it's true. The black and white looks so elegant. But
Yeah, it's so elegant so far. So we'll
yeah,
see what we'll see. She's going to knock herself out. We'll see what she does. And of course, Kyle Ritter is just busy being Kyle Ritter. So I'm not going to be able to, he
yeah,
knows I'm happy to hire him to do more coloring. Actually, you're a colorist too. We kind of forgot that. We'll have to talk about that offline.
yeah.
But yeah, we'll just, you have to just try stuff sometimes and see what it looks like. That's exactly what I was talking about before. Is like you could do calculations all over the place and try to have references and examples. Just be like, either someone's going to have a vision for something as a collaborator or they're not. And if they do and it looks good, then great. And if it doesn't look good, then yeah, heck, keep it black and white. See, this is Tony. You're right, man. I don't know. Maybe we'll have both versions. Sorry, Nar. What were we going to say, brother?
Oh, nothing. I don't know. Like my second book, Foreign Agent, is black and white. It's with like gray tones. But yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about that because I just know like, and I've tested it myself where I had a short comic that was black and white, and there's some other elements here. So it was like way early in COMICSGATE, and I feel like almost when COMICSGATE didn't exist, and I was putting out this short comic out there for free for people to read, and like no one read it. And then I colored it like 6 months later, a year later, colored it, released it again, and then it went like mini viral. Like a bunch of people read it, and so I don't know.
Yeah, let's talk about Foreign Agent for a minute. We do need to get through the tiers so people are aware of what they can buy. But basically, on Earthbound, you can get the soft cover version, and the book is a 148-page beautiful book, full color by Narwhal, written, art, drawn, lettered, everything Narwhal. Or you can get the hardcover version. You're going to buy it anyway, and it's going to ship. So, I mean, you might really want to think about just getting the hardcover version or the hardcover plus the sketchbook.
Yeah,
Which,
for the
which is
hardcover, there's only 500 in the print run, and for softcover, there's 1,500. So
okay.
they're both kind of like limited editions, but hardcover especially.
And you sign these as well?
Yeah,
Oh, nice, very nice. Do you number them? I guess what the hell, maybe.
I can't remember if I had them numbered or not. I don't think so. I don't know if I'll number them.
Well, there are only going to be 2,000 of them between the two printed editions. So,
Yeah, it says that down on the copyright. It's like 500
oh,
total.
that's really cool, man.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And what is the sketchbook?
It's 20 pages of a first third of a Nosferatu comic that I've just kind of been doing in the background, almost like for fun. I've been adapting silent film and adding a few things from other versions of the film, almost like a mixtape. But I didn't have to write a script for that, so like that's almost like therapeutic. Although I haven't worked on it in almost like 6 months, and I still have like 20 pages to draw. It'll be 60 pages total when it's all done. I have it all thumbed out. But it's it's the first 20 pages of that, and then it's a short comic called Robozan, which is like an AI type, like within the AI, like an AI is represented by a bunch of monkeys working in a building and kind of like what happens. But so there's those two, and then some just like art over the years. So that one's 48 pages total. That's kind of just like a collector's item too, if anyone wants to add it. Any Narwhal completionists out there?
Wow, look at what this guy said about Earthbound. I just finished reading or maybe watching Earthbound. I can't praise it enough. It's too mundane to say I can't wait for the next one. I now have an Earthbound shaped hole in my life, eagerly anticipating my physical copy. Wow.
Yeah. That felt so good to connect with a few readers that way. Like Avi, you know, like I didn't know him. He just reached out. He's like, "Hey, I really liked your book." And I was like, "Oh, that's so cool." He's a lawyer in Chicago. And I'm like, "Dude, a lawyer in Chicago really liked my book." But yeah, he really
That's a great feeling.
he really
See, guys,
hit
the
praise.
feedback does matter. The feedback does matter.
It's kind of what keeps us going. It's not like you need it all the time. Like there's some saying where like it's like Hannah Montana or something. If she tells her fans her favorite color, then she'll get thousands of fan mail of just that color, and then it's not her favorite color anymore. But so I don't want to like ask for praise because then you get too much. But when you get praise, it feels really good. So I like it. Yeah.
Especially something really thoughtful like that, where someone takes a minute to really try to express like, wow, this has just impressed me. I really want you to know I like it. All right, guys. So, if you haven't backed this already, and honestly, I haven't, and I want to, and I want to read it right away. And I saw someone else, I think Captain F-Head in the chat was saying he wanted to read it right away as well. So we may have to just PayPal Narwhal immediately, and then and then follow up and back it on here. But Narwhal, you're at Plaster Harris. It's right here on Twitter. So we can contact Narwhal, just message him and say, hey, how can I PayPal you?
Yeah,
And
anyone who wants to read it right away, yeah, we can do that pretty easily. So it's not that big a deal.
you know what? In fact, if you tell, it's going to be an email address of some kind, isn't it? Where we can PayPal you?
Yeah, yeah. My PayPal email is pdb as in Per Darwinberg, which is my name, pdb212 @gmail.com.
Anybody that wants to email or actually PayPal, well, either or both, Narwhal for
$8, I
Earthbound,
think. Yeah.
just send him $8. He'll send you the book, or he'll say send me another 22 cents, or he'll reimburse you 5 cents if it's a little bit off. He'll make it work for you, I think. But yeah,
Yeah.
just PayPal him $8. He'll get it to you. You'll read it, and you'll be like, "This is pretty freaking amazing." And then tell a friend, and then give them his email address and so on. That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. Very cool. We got to talk about your new project, Foreign Agent. With respect to the black and white thing, I will tell you this. College of the Dead is pretty badass. We have some very cool artwork. We have the cover colored by Kyle Ritter, and it's completely done. It's 140 pages. This was designed 2 panels per page. I really liked the engagement that we were getting from the design of just having it be really simplistic like that, 2 panels per page, having the panels all be the same size. You do get lost in the story just by going through the first 12 pages that we have here. It was very restrictive for the artist, and he did a lot within those constraints. So he did well. But then again, after that book was done, he gave me this as the cover to College of the Dead book 2. And I was like, all right, well, maybe I have to be careful about putting limits on this artist because, he could have done a lot more in the design and the layout. But anyway, my point is, having been on shows, like I was on Ethan's COMICSGATE live show, and if you're showing a black and white book, it's a little different than showing everyone else showing their color books, because you can do so much more, of course, as you know, with color than we can do with black and white. I did notice that you also have I think it was on your YouTube channel, there was a little animation of Foreign Agent.
Yeah, yeah, I animate the characters a little bit here and there. So I'm going to use some of that for promo. And that, on the other hand, does seem to get lots of response. So that could help when the time comes. I might try and do more. It takes so long, though.
Yeah, well, so I did a one-on-one with Kyle Ritter talking about Starblades, and it ran for about an hour and a half, and we were talking about his promo, because he did that. I think it's 40. I don't know if it's 43 seconds or 30 seconds. However, it's pretty short. But it looks like an amazing cartoon. You saw his animation, I'm sure,
Yeah,
right?
it looked so cool. He's so talented.
Yeah, he is, and whatever he lacks in talent, he makes up for with hard work. Because I don't see any lack of talent. We just see more and more amazing things from him. So I was asking him. That was like I had a great opportunity to be able to communicate with him. We had an ASL person, a sign language person, and another person that was Shay Zombie was the sign language person, and Cyborg Valkyrie, as she's known, typing away, and we were able to have a pretty great back and forth communication. And he said he spent a month working on that 30-second animation,
Yeah.
and that every piece of art was drawn. It was hand drawn, and he did it in Adobe After Effects, which he had never used for animation before. But that said, it created a tremendous amount of sales for him, like tremendous.
Yeah, that seemed to boost him over the edge for sure. He was floating around 60K and then slowed down a little bit. And then, yeah, I think he cracked 100K after that. It got
because
released.
because of his limitation of not being able to speak. Uh, he was on Ethan's show, but he wasn't on Ethan's show much at all. And Ethan was on a show, one of his live streams once, and he was just talking about Kyle. This wasn't even the last night or like even the last week, maybe a week and a half or so before the end. And he played the Starblade's promo, I think, twice, and talked about how much he loves Kyle's work and how inspired he is by Kyle's work and how talented he is for about maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and they raised, I think it was $8,000.
Yeah.
Because the video really, it really sells the work. So I would, maybe if you could do 10 seconds of animation.
Yeah, I definitely need to set some time and bust some animation out. Part of it, I need to think of what to do. Yeah, and so with one interesting thing about this book too is I wonder if I can show you. Let me see if I can screen share.
It would be great to see some work on this. And you're sure it's got to be black and white? Or would you consider doing
it almost color? Well, the thing is I made it black and white for there's a little plot point to it all, like a point of intrigue about it being black and white, kind of just because you're not sure when it takes place, because it feels like a 1950s war story, but then it's there's hints that it's not, and so I kind of like that, and coloring might ruin that, but maybe I should get over it and just color.
Well, as your friend and as your co-publisher, I am not your co-publisher, but I like to pretend if I was like partners with somebody, what would I say to them? To you, I would say, well, is it worth? What is it worth financially for that extra creative aesthetic? Is it worth perhaps selling $10,000, less, or
oh yeah, see,
less?
that's a good point. And but part of that too is there's the time involved. So like it's done now, and I need to work on Earthbound Part 2, so this can buy me.
Oh my God, this thing is done.
Yeah, I finished it.
No. You can't go back in and do color now.
Okay.
No. If this was if it was, proactive, and like, all right, we're going to just, we've got concepts and whatnot, but no, would this is done, then we got to release it.
Yeah, because it'll just buy me time, and it's the way you can count it as a learned lesson if it sells a little less or whatever. But
it's also great for production purposes. Actually, printing in black and white you have a lot more options that way.
Oh yeah, I need to look into that more. Yeah, that'd be sweet if that saves. So so here you can see this still.
Sorry, let me get it to your shared screen. I'm not even paying attention. Oh, okay. Wow, cool.
Yeah, so it uses a 3D file for the house, and it's very simple, low poly, but you get these gradients, and the moods here are a little bit different. I made it like this is towards the climax, and it's kind of like moody, almost like foggy house, and earlier it's like sunny. But and I don't know if there's stills there, but
oh, that's cool. Yeah.
There's one, but this could, I'll go back to. That's pretty much the only example for me to discuss it. Let me see. Sorry.
Wow.
Oh, here it is. Okay. So yeah, I pull out the 3D, and that becomes like it has gradients, but then the characters don't. So it creates that animation separation feel. It like conjures animation feel that I like, but it's different. This is a different than Earthbound, where in Earthbound I draw everything. In this one, I don't actually draw the backgrounds. I'm in this 3D program with a digital camera taking pictures and then drawing the people over the top of it. And surprisingly, it doesn't speed up the process at all. It takes just as long.
Really, it doesn't.
Yeah, and it might speed it up if it was color. I thought about doing a few pages of Earthbound Volume 2 that way, just as an experiment, because it's also surprising. People don't tend to notice too much. Certain panels they might notice, but sometimes it just feels like the way I draw anyway. Like I use the color holds on all the lines. So if the background and the foreground are separated in that animation kind of way, people are kind of used to that for me.
Yeah, I like that whole color hold thing. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
But this book, it's like some subgenres combined is like kind of one easy way to pitch it, but it's like a military winter western home invasion. So it's the home invasion subgenre most specifically, and that kind of allows it to be. It takes place almost all in just one house. So again, that's kind of why it worked for the 3D. I was like, I could just have a 3D program. And one other thing I've noticed about that, I remember learning this from watching Dawn of the Dead, but that Dawn of the Dead takes place in one location the mall for most of it. And what
Yeah.
they do is they reuse camera angles to give you, so you end up getting a sense of like where they are in the mall just by what camera angle it is, because you've seen it before, so you get oriented based on the camera angles. So I try and do that with this story too. Like I will shoot it generally like I'll if I'm it's funny, I know it's like a lot in some ways kind of like filmmaking, like I got to pick the lens and the camera angle for each scene of what it's trying to do. But it's these two soldiers, they, you know, they're alone in the forest, cold and hungry. They barge into this house and they're going to try and make the house kind of take care of them for a night or 2 days or whatever, till they hide out for a bit and then get on their way. But one soldier, the house doesn't speak the same language as them. So one soldier, he draws a bunch of drawings to try and communicate with them of what they're going to do. They're like, we're not going to kill you. We just want to stay here for a couple days till things die down. Then we'll be on our way and we'll be nice to you while we're here. So he draws this comic. It becomes like a comic within a comic. And
Wow.
I hired my buddy to do all that art. So that's like the meta art for this character. And then the boy, he's an artist too. So they exchange comics within comics. And I have another buddy drawing that art, meta
Wow.
art. So yeah.
So this guy who's holding the gun, I mean, this is that all sounds so erudite and intelligent. And I'm going to ask you a dumb question, which is, the guy holding the gun is the foreign agent?
Yeah, so foreign agent, it's sort of like the double meaning, but it just means like foreign agent is like an ingredient mixture that shouldn't have been there, like the agent being an ingredient.
Ah, okay.
And yeah, and I think like thematically it's sort of like, if you imagine, you know, like with this is all so like so subtle, it's not really touched on, but if you imagine like us in Iraq when we're saying hearts and minds, you know, that kind of stuff. And then like it's like a country, you know, this is like a giant home invasion, a small scale. It's like very similar thematically. So that's kind of the idea.
Very cool. How many pages is this project going to be?
This one, it's like 180.
Okay.
Yeah, and this one I kind of was working on this in like here and there for a lot of while I was working on Earthbound. Although Earthbound was like my first book, then like, you know, 60 pages into Earthbound, I kind of started this one here and there. I finished Earthbound, and I started to try and finish this one because like I had done a fair amount of production before COMICSGATE even started, so I'm kind of like catching up now, where I'm able to release a couple projects that have really high page rates because I had some pages backed up that I didn't have anything to do with until COMICSGATE came along, you know.
That's very, very cool. So this book, do you know now, for people to get involved with this book, I like all the stuff that you were sharing before. I want to make sure people are aware of where they can sign up. So there is a sign up for this. It's not on Indiegogo. You might want to think about adding that on Indiegogo as well.
There is an Indiegogo link as
Okay.
well, and so I kind of have two mailing lists. It's kind of I messed up a little bit, but I don't know. It's like either way. I'm just
All
gonna
right.
mail out to both.
If you have the link for Indiegogo, guys, then sign up there just to be notified of what's going on with Foreign Agent. We should definitely make sure there's a launch party going down for Foreign Agent whenever you're ready to launch. Basically, just having a YouTube show where everybody's excited and we draw people in so that we can get day one backers. We need day one backers to make campaigns successful.
Yeah, I would love that. I appreciate it. And yeah, it'll be like February or so. It's kind of weird, the timing. Like I was planning on launching it like August or something, but it gets delayed because Earthbound, the printing got delayed, and I want to fulfill Earthbound before I launch this. So
well,
then it's Christmas.
I respect that a lot too. Is you want to get those books out, you just want to get them in people's hands, and also as soon as people start, that's another reason to keep the store open. People are going to see that book hit, and when that book hits, people are going to be showing pictures of it. And then people are going to be like, oh, wait a minute, I totally forgot about that book. I didn't get that book. Or they're going to read the book and they're going to be like, this is amazing. I want to get one for a friend. They got to have a place to go. So that the store will be where they can go until you sell out of them. And Ethan Van Sciver was talking about Cyberfrog. And once he's shipped everything on Cyberfrog, he did do some overruns of even the first two Chromium covers. and the ones that he has left over, he's going to sell those at an inflated price, as he describes it, just
Oh
so that
yeah.
whoever it was that bought them first get them first, and they get them at the original price. And then I don't know if he's going to double it or triple it. He seems to know what he's doing on pricing, but it ain't going to be cheap. But it may be another idea too, is that once the book ships, then last few remaining copies can go at a even higher rate,
Yeah,
because they,
there's Ethan's a good businessman though. Yeah, there's something like that. One thing that happened to me that was interesting is I got contacted by a dude, and I think quite a few campaigns he was doing this for, but he wanted 10 copies of Earthbound, and then he's like just collecting them and waiting for them to inflate, then he's going to sell them. I was like, that's not a bad idea for like COMICSGATE in general. A lot of these books, like you could pretty easily double your money, I think.
Well, when you look at like any of the big COMICSGATE books, it seems like they've all appreciated. I think the the least limited book was of Cyberfrog. Ethan retweeted something about it being $50 on eBay so far, and I'm sure it'll increase from there. And he had on his campaigns you could buy 10, and you have that still. You have a great deal on Earthbound for people that want to buy some multiple copies. And look, we're not selling investment plans here. Speak to your accounting and your investment advisors if you want to plan for your retirement. But to get 10 copies, what is that? No, wait, softcover bulk. How many copies is that?
I actually forget. It might be
5 copies.
5. Yeah.
It's 5 copies for $65. So they're a little bit more than $12 each. Is that going to go up in value? Yeah, it will. They're already worth $20 because that's how much
And
we're
you can
charging for
see,
them here.
yeah, you can see with that one, I'm nervous about like accidentally losing money on it somehow. So there's only 12 available and 6 have sold. So
Yeah, people are buying them. Yeah, somehow you can always lose money. There's always a way. I've lost money over the years publishing comics, but as far as the back issues thing, we were doing Personality Comics. It's a line of biography comics in the early 1990s, and it's what we would do. You release your Arnold Schwarzenegger biography and Babe Ruth or whatever these titles were, and over time you start to sell out of them, and then people want to buy them from mail order, and then you kind of increase the price relative to how many you have left, and there's nothing wrong with it. And fans are just happy to be able to get a copy. But you can also see what's fair if people have them on eBay and see what they're selling them for. People buying these for $20 are going to be selling them for $50 on eBay. It's just a very normal thing if people are going to do that. But you buy them to read them and enjoy them. And Earthbound really, really looks terrific. So Foreign Agent, you're thinking February most likely, right?
yeah, like late February, early March, somewhere around there.
Very cool. Yeah, I have several other projects I want to do, and some of the stuff is nearly complete as well. And for me, I just have to see my books. I have to just know that they're literally in the mail before I'll even let myself contemplate scheduling anything, which is really not the way to do publishing. The way to do publishing is to come up with a calendar. You move ahead on projects, and you get, especially things where you give work to other people, because it can take them like a month to get something finished. So you want to start sooner and start later instead of later. But for me, I just want people to have their books. And then once they have their books, I'm a happy guy, and we can
Yeah.
do whatever we want to do.
It's good to stay focused. I've noticed that like the more I talk about Foreign Agent, I can feel I'm sucking the energy from Earthbound. But Earthbound, it's been out there long enough that I'm kind of ready for it to. It can like gestate for a few months, and then it might have a surge at the end after I fulfill some, like we were talking about, and then I'll probably definitely want to push it some more before it ends or whatever. But
I like the color art that you were showing on Foreign Agent. Also, like I guess there were covers.
Yeah. Yeah, I can show that quick.
You know what? Let's just look at that one more time. I'm going to go back onto your screen. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Really nice looking.
Tried to do that 90s movie poster thing where they show the squares of the people down at the bottom.
Very cool design. So you've done a lot. Have you done a bunch of graphic design as well?
Dabbled, but I feel like I'm not the greatest at it for whatever. I feel like that's a lot of way people are like, it's whatever you're confident in. If you think you're good at it, then you're probably pretty good. Like I'm pretty confident at like my ability to draw perspective and to draw like high energy animation-esque poses. So those are like my strengths. And then like, yeah, weaknesses or whatever. Graphic design is actually one of my borderline weaknesses. And
Mhm.
I might eventually hire someone to take a look at the logo font, you know, and maybe come up with something different. But
I've seen so many interesting. You were mentioning YouTube education earlier, with respect to like learning about art and just like getting education on things. I saw a YouTube video on logo design, and there's a gentleman who was just, I don't know if it was part of a TV show or what it was. It was very well produced. He was talking about producing an original looking logo, and he was showing his process. I love to see people's process, like going back and looking at older references and trying to have something that just fit a modern aesthetic, but also had a classic look. And
nice.
a lot of it is just I probably I should have saved that link. I normally do save links, but I guess I just watched it and kind of went on, something YouTube suggested. But yeah, there's just so much great education and all that stuff. But the thing of it is, yeah, it's just like Tony said, really nice colors again. Your use of color and your poses. You're absolutely right. That stuff that you do, that you're confident at, you are like next level with. So nothing wrong with collaborating with other people, having them give you some feedback. Um,
Yeah.
Mark Maz, who did a lot of my graphic design for the College of Dead books, also designed the Cyberfrog logo. And he comes up with some very creative things, actually, including the fire on College of the Dead. But he has a lot of he's done a lot of great design. So I could try to put you guys in touch too if you want his 2 cents, and then maybe you guys might collaborate on something. But yeah, I love collaborating with other people. Fortunately for me, I'm very good at high concept, but everything else, like, I've never really developed discipline for. So I get to collaborate with all sorts of terrific people, and then they bring in so many great ideas, and then you're kind of just packaging it together, and then you wind up with something fantastic because you know what it essentially, the essence of it is, but it's not finalized. So as long as people are passionate about their contribution and they understand that we're not trying to change the essence of something, the final product becomes just kind of unique and brilliant and great, and people get to be very invested in it, which is great. I really like to, whenever I do something, to keep it organic and let people,
Yeah.
just generally contribute.
That's a good point. And yeah, it's fun to like well, it takes a lot of energy to like shepherd a project that's like a big job in its own right. So if you're like a writer and a shepherd, like it kind of like, I feel like that's how a producer in movies might be like that. Like people are always like, what does a producer actually do? Or even like an editor in comics, sometimes you're like, well, they don't necessarily just like read the comic and edit the prose. There's a lot of kind of things that they bring to the table.
Yeah, it's interesting, and the producer, it probably is similar to a producer, because for me, a lot of it's communication. Javier, who did the College of the Dead, all the art and that new graduation cover. I have him working on a few other cover designs for College of the Dead book too. So he did roughs first, and actually I have him working on four more covers for it, because I just couldn't stop once we got came up with some cool ideas. But as a good producer of that, let's say that's my title for it, I knew the right question to ask him when he showed me the roughs for all four of them was like, well, which one are you most passionate about that you would want to work on? And I thought he would pick number one, but he wound up picking number two. Just like, why should I limit him if I don't have to limit him? Just because I might want to see the first one done first, so I can make him do it. Yeah, he's working for me. I can make him do whatever I need to make him do. But if I don't need, you don't need to force. You need to facilitate.
Yeah,
You
that's a
know.
good point. Yeah, I remember like the first time I kind of had a little bit of budget to start hiring other artists for this and that. Like it's going from that to like in the early days when you'd like collaborate with someone, you're like, let's both like let's work on something together. Those almost never end up working because
Mhm.
you both end up going your separate ways, or there's no money involved, so you can't tell them what you want sometimes. But as soon as I got money, I could tell them what I was thinking, what I wanted. But also I agree 100% that it's like if you're able to like empower them more to get them more excited about it, that will only benefit you. And that's for me on the other side. I feel like that, like I almost don't take jobs anymore if people want me to draw a different style. Like I'll just sell my style now pretty
Draw a
much.
different style.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even think of doing that.
Yeah, like back in the day, that's how it used to be on Craigslist. They're like, "Can you draw this?" I'm like, "Sure," and like you kind of scramble by, but it's like, I probably don't want to do that anymore.
Well, so you, the storyboard stuff that you did though from Craigslist was just straight storyboards.
Yeah, yeah. I some of it was like medical storyboards, and
Oh,
for
like advertising art?
yeah, like it was like to sell. Well, it was like from an animation studio that contracted through like a medical thing where I don't know if they're trying to get funding, like big
Okay.
funding, maybe like pharma or whatever, but they needed like these 3D videos made that explain their product kind of. So I was drawing like white blood cells attacking, parasites and stuff.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's funny, but all it is, it's basically like I was drawing like circles with little things coming off of them.
Oh, that's
So
really cool.
yeah.
Well, Jack Kirby did the cavities commercial, didn't he? The cavities. We put holes in teeth. We put holes in teeth. If you remember that commercial.
No, that's kind of
Oh,
funny though.
oh yeah, yeah. I'll have to try and I'll find it and send you the link to it. Yeah, I thought it was Kirby who did that. It was somebody big. It was definitely somebody who was big. I thought it was Jack Kirby. Um, yeah. Well, as an artist, a lot of times until you find your groove, you are just. It's very much like client to client, check to check, and hoping people pay and hoping people. You wind up working with a lot of people that don't necessarily know what they're doing too. I guess as an artist.
Oh yeah,
Cavity
yeah.
creeps. Yeah, Shinto. Thank you. It was the cavity creeps. Shinto, if you know if that was Jack Kirby or not, let me know. I thought it was Kirby. Oh, hey, it's Brian. Brian has a cool project. Six Gun Gorillas.
Oh nice. That looks great.
Yeah,
That icon art.
yeah. Isn't that cool? He's got a lot of cool. He's got something up. It's funding right now. We should actually do a show.
One thing I remember
Oh,
from kind of
Tungsten.
oh, Tungsten's here. Nice. So
Hey,
he's the one I'm
Tungsten.
working with him on modded, and he's
Very
in
cool.
Singapore. But yeah, I remember working with people, and like one thing that would always make me kind of laugh if I could sense they didn't know that much about art, maybe is if somehow they wanted like higher contrast, be it like to an unreasonable degree where I could send them like what I think looks good, then I'll just take Photoshop, jack the contrast up all the way and the saturation or whatever, send that version too, and they always pick the saturated high contrast version. And it just to me it looks like crap, but they like it for some reason. I'm like, oh, weird.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's so that they would send you sample art and then you would mess with it, or you're talking about what you
That was like
deliver to
my
them.
own art that I do for them. I'd kind of they'd
Okay.
want two versions, or whatever.
Okay. So you give them the normal version and then the super ridiculous saturated high contrast version.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. I want to get on Earthbound. This is the image that I used for this live stream. I really this is just such a freaking cool image. So the color holds is when you use the background color instead of a black.
Yeah. Hold on. Are you putting up the image of her holding the knife?
I was trying. All
Oh.
right, I don't have it shared properly. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. Nope, that's me. That's us. And that's it. Yep. Thank you, brother.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so yeah, color holds is like it's just when they used to do it where it's just the black of the ink is colored, so it's not black. And usually it'll be colored like a slightly darker shade of the color that's around it. And it makes it look a little more painterly. It's like a quick way to kind of get that look.
Yeah, that's just neat as hell. That's neat as hell.
Yeah, that's a good Photoshop trick to anyone who's learning Photoshop. Like, it's like 5 steps, so it feels like a little intimidating and complicated at first. But now I got it. It's down to muscle memory, and I always pull out a layer with all the inks and make a mask, invert it, and then, or you invert it, then you make a mask, and that becomes the color hold layer. And
I'm jealous. I don't really understand most of those words, but I know roughly what that sort of is. But I know that you talented guys know how to do all that fancy schmancy stuff, and it just looks beautiful. All
Yeah.
right. So is an Earthbound is the first book that you're self-publishing?
Yes. Yeah. So like the other one was Machete Squad was through a company, and then this is like my second book, getting a little more my feet moving, getting everything rolling, and then Foreign Agent, then Earthbound Part Two, and that's kind of me for the next year or so. I'm doing that as well as a couple small projects on the side. I realize it is like I'm busy, you know. Well, this is one thing that's so cool about ComicsGate is
Mhm.
for me, I'm like down to I work 2 days a week at the Fred Meyer Deli. When ComicsGate started, I was full time at the deli, and I was you know I hated it, and so I'm so grateful to go those cut those hours way down and be basically a full-time artist now, which is awesome.
Wow. So you have just a little bit of part-time work, and that's just steady cash, and then the rest is self-publishing and freelance art.
Yep. And that like Fred Meyer hours, like I might, even if I might never cut those because it's just to get out of the house once a week, you know, or I might look for another job or volunteer
You
somewhere.
need to kind of get the hell out of the house. Yeah, I know the feeling because I'll work from home a lot, and just to be around other people, the things that we take for granted about even knowing how to communicate with strangers on the street or talk to other people,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. You can become, yeah, like autistic or whatever if you stay
yeah,
inside too long.
you really can, you really can. It's not good. It's not the way to do it. Um, so in terms of freelance work, just since we're talking about it, hey, first of all, what would you say to coloring? Would you have ideas about coloring this College of the Dead piece while we're talking? Let's create something while we're talking.
Of that one,
Would
like,
you leave it black and white, or what would you do with it for color if it was Narwhal?
yeah,
By the
like
way, we're gonna call when Narwhal works on something, we're gonna call it being Narwhal. What if this was Narwhal?
if this was Narwhal, that's funny. Yeah, like the first thing I'd test is like how they color Tim Sale. So he uses heavy blacks, and they color him with basically flats, but they're desaturated and dark, and they go well with the blacks. So I might try that and see if it looks good. And that's kind of my only initial idea, because I
Okay.
think this is with the heavy blacks like that. It does like it's almost designed to be two colors. It's designed to be black and white, and it looks good that way.
Yeah,
The thing you could do too is you could use color holds on something like this. So would that
I
be
know, I know. I'm learning about color holds. It's very exciting.
yeah, and that might be interesting. So then in that case, like their gowns, like they could be dark purple instead of black, you know, and
Oh
that might
yeah.
look a little different, something like that.
Well, I guess what we'll do is, I think Farah will finish one any day from now, and then I'll probably ask you what you think of it too, because I don't know. I mean, it. I publish a lot of this stuff, but sometimes it's also very hard to speak um, to creative people and be able to understand their language completely and make sense on feedback. But understanding like your reference point of Tim Sale, I love those reference points that just kind of make it easy. Like, oh yeah, well, how do you cover dark black, uh, color dark black stuff like that? And the answer is like, go find reference for how other people do it. They're all holding these degrees, which I'm kind of only noticing now. I think I don't think they ever really popped out for me before.
Yeah, you can
Um,
make them pop more. Those are white, so you could give them a light source that could be two tone, like a
mm.
harsh top light, you know, or something.
Yeah, we'll have to screw with this, man. I'll show you when it comes in, and then maybe you'll have time to take a pass at a freelance narwhal take on it to narwhal this thing a little bit. I'd love that. I'd love to see what you would do. I really like, you do have very unique um, approaches to stuff, and your style is unique, and your coloring is impactful and interesting, and you have these really good reasons for everything that you do, and they work aesthetically. Yeah, there are details to this that don't necessarily pop out. That as you look at the piece more, it's there. A couple of these, like this guy looks like an alien, doesn't he?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I kind of like, is he a gray alien or?
Yeah,
I
it
don't
looks like one
think
of the green
so.
guys.
He kind of does, but we shouldn't make that pop out because that's maybe not as that wasn't intended. So we don't want to feature that. Um, so you still have time to take on some additional freelance work.
Yeah, just no huge projects. Unfortunately, I'm sort
Sure.
of booked ish on those, I think, but I can take,
Bits and pieces. So if
yeah.
people were looking, okay, Herb Trimp, the first Astro Wolverine, according to Google, created the Cavity Creeps. Thank you, Shinto. All right, it was not Jack Kirby. I don't know where I got that from, but Cavity Creeps on YouTube. Look it up. It's adorable. It's
Okay,
very
well,
cool.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
write that down.
Well, not just the audience, but you too. Cavity Creeps. It's very cute. We make holes in teeth, and then they're like superheroes that fight the cavity creeps. It's cute. You'll probably make a book out of it. So damn creative. So if anyone else wants to reach you, obviously they can reach you through Twitter. What other kind of freelance projects really suit you? That piece you did for Door Kickers is just freaking fantastic.
Yeah, that's kind of like my product that I'm offering is like like one or two characters, not too complicated background, and just drawing it heavy action, cool coloring. Can put space at the top for you to use your logo if you want. And I've gotten a handful of those to kind of boost any campaign. People will commission that from me, and there's a few more of those in the pipeline. So you see something like that from Narwhal once in a while, just kind of these like they're like, I don't know what you'd call them. They're like, they have character posters for movies where it's just about one character. Like I kind of do those because I can draw them pretty fast and affordable and everything. But yeah.
Okay. Do you and to get the rate, people would contact you, and you're like, "Hey, this is what I get for this," and
Yeah. Yeah.
rather than rather than advertise a rate.
I guess I don't know how that works yet. So for now, I guess I'm sort of just keeping it on the
Well,
in DMs.
if
But
anyone's interested, message Narwhal. Obviously, he's a very reasonable guy. And if the rate works for you, fantastic. And if it doesn't, then you will miss out because this is a cool cover, and this did sell. Just looking at Scott's campaign, Scott promoted a lot. He did a great job. He's on a lot of shows, but just the Narwhal cover alone, excluding it as part of a set, and it was also as part of a set, but excluding it as part of a set, it's 22 copies at $25, and then as part of a set, another 33 copies sold. So, I mean, 50 copies at $25 a copy is, at least an extra $1,000 on the campaign.
oh yeah,
So
yeah, and he didn't. I don't think it was going to be a cover, but then it got a big response, or he liked it, so then it became a cover, which is fun too.
yeah. Oh, and there's a collector's bundle that Scott has. By the way, you can support Scott's campaign too, which is partly why Scott did this. See that when you work with Narwhal, you get mentioned.
Yeah, I'm kind of like Eric Weathers. I can be that name that's out there between multiple campaigns, so it does help a little bit for the way it all networks together.
Yeah, I'll have to talk to you because maybe we'll do a Narwhal College of the Dead cover too, just like a separate art cover.
Oh yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
just
I'd
seem
be
like a
interested.
really cool guy. Even asking you to do this show together, I was looking forward to it. But I was also like, I don't know, I really kind of don't know Narwhal. He's like old school CG. He's been around for a long time, and maybe Narwhal's too cool to do a show. But too cool, yes, but not to do a show. That's for sure. So for
Yeah,
so you do those character poses. You'll do kind of that relatively straightforward, simplistic but beautiful color piece that you can use as a cover. What other stuff might you do freelance? You said you were doing some coloring for people
yeah,
to
and
know.
then just coloring in general. I've been doing like a little bit more and more of that. Art Tibbert is kind of a little bit higher profile when I've been working with him, and that's been fun and kind of learning too from. He obviously knows what he's talking about, so it's kind of fun to talk with him about it as we progress and stuff.
And that's just coloring sequential art pages.
Yeah, and that was like a little bit bigger project. So that was one because Earthbound won't fulfill till November, December, and then it's Christmas, and then so I won't be launching Foreign Agent till so I have a few months. So I'm like I could actually take on some bigger projects. So the timing was good. So I was like I signed on to color like his whole book. It'll be like a 48-page book, I think. So I'm coloring it.
Very cool. And that is in terms of the palette of color you're using for that, it's just obviously something you guys worked out. Did Chrono Mechanics get offered yet? It's not on Indiegogo yet, right?
No, but there is signups for the mailing lists floating around. So I definitely encourage everyone
Okay.
to sign up for that. But yeah.
Yeah, keep an eye out for that. Art is a fantastic artist. He's been around for a really long time. He did he already do a version of that book or an earlier edition on Kickstarter years ago?
I think he did. We're basically remastering it, I think,
Ah,
kind of, yeah.
okay. Okay,
Yeah.
cool, cool. Yeah, he remastered his book Black and White, right? It was very,
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
really
yeah. That was his
successful.
first big hop into ComicsGate. He's full time, ComicsGate guy. He runs a cool show too and promotes people. And he's like definitely way more quiet as far as the drama goes. He keeps his head low, but he's positive
Oh,
and cool.
zero drama, right?
Yeah,
Zero drama.
yeah,
I didn't know he promoted people as well. That's fantastic.
yeah. I forget what its show's called. It's called Hack Studios or something. But it's
Okay.
not that. It's not like he's a hack. I
No,
don't know
no,
what.
no.
I forget the branding of it. It's Hack something though.
You know what? He was in the same studio as Render Contender. Um, and Render was telling a story. Render's an artist. He goes by the name Render Contender. He's the artist on Outlaw Nights, which is on Indiegogo now. And also, he did some work on Graveyard Shift, book two.
Oh yeah,
Um, Cavity Creeps video really lives up to your hype. He went to go check out Cavity. We could do a whole show on Cavity Creeps, guys. It was very cool. Check it out. You'll love it. When I was a kid, we watched it came on TV, and it was like, all right, that's really, really cool. So also check out Render Contenders Outlaw Nights. That's a really cool looking book. He's a really good artist. He works very hard. I don't know if you know him or not, Narwhal, but Render Contender he's a really hardworking guy that just wants to do, a beautifully rendered page. He's just that kind of guy, wants to be in the business and work really hard at it. I think he's going to definitely get more and more of a following as time goes on.
cool.
All right, guys, I want you to check out Earthbound. Be sure to back Earthbound. Make sure you sign up for the mailing list. The link is in the description for both of them. For Foreign Agent, that looks like it's going to be a very, very cool book. And it's almost done already. It'll be offered in February, so that one will ship, I'm sure, quickly in 2020. That ought to be probably shipping by the summertime, though.
Which foreign agent?
Foreign Agent, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm after Earthbound. I'm nervous about the process because Earthbound took so much longer than I would have guessed. But yeah, the point with this one, it's all done, so it can't take too long. Just like
Yeah, I'll help you with some ideas on black and white printing because that you really do have a lot more flexibility. You can do that quickly in the U.S. and affordably these days.
cool.
So we'll some printers you can check out um, and just not have to rely on China, that's really the only way to print 2,000 really good looking color books. The way you did it is either China or South Korea or something like that. But yeah, for black and white, you can do it here. All right, guys. So make sure that you take a look at backing Earthbound. Back it if you like it, but it really looks like a beautiful book. You're able to contact Narwhal directly too if you want to PayPal him to get the digital. And don't forget to sign up for Foreign Agent coming out in February. We'll have a launch party either on my channel or on a bigger channel, even just so a lot of people get to find out about that. But just make sure you're signed up for it. Guys, thank you all for visiting. Tungsten, it's very good to see you. It's very cool. You guys are working on a project together. Brian, great to see you. Nella, great to see you. Shinto Ketchup, everybody, thank you so much for taking time and spending time with us. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Narwhal is so interesting. We could talk for hours and hours and hours.
I was just gonna say we could keep
Narwhal,
talking, but thank you so much. Yeah, and everyone remember to back College of the Dead too.
absolutely. Don't forget my book, College of the Dead. It is going to be shipping this month, so get in on it. You're going to love that book as well. Narwhal, thank you so much, and thank you everybody really for spending time with us tonight. It was great. Narwhal, you and I might come up with a format and start doing more shows because you're a hell of an interesting guy, man.
Thanks. Yeah, good talking to you. Yeah, and you as well. I enjoyed it.
Appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
Wrapping her up.